Welcome to the Raw Spotlight podcast, where we feature inspiring leaders in the B2B space and share their unique stories. Let's get started with the show.
Welcome to the Raw Spotlight, She's Got Hustle. The podcast series features fearless women transforming businesses and life through perseverance, growth, and a healthy dose of hustle. I'm your host, Emily Au, co-founder of Ready Artwork. As a designer, marketer, and entrepreneur, I'm excited to share the inspiring stories of women making a difference. I spotlight women hustlers from B2B niches, markets, and major brands, local ventures, and also public organizations. My guests share their success stories and how they balance passion with purpose. If you're seeking real talk and motivation from women who hustle, you are in the right place. So earlier in the season, I had the pleasure of speaking with Kelly Farmer, a fellow powerhouse in communications. We discussed how cultivating a strong, authentic voice is crucial for leadership and building lasting connections. It's clear that both Kelly and today's guest, Mary-Joy, share a commitment to fostering transparent communication. So I am excited to dive deeper into her journey today. So get comfortable, settle in, and get ready to be inspired. But before we start, I do have a sponsor message. This episode is brought to you by Ready Artwork, where we deliver uniquely tailored digital marketing services to facilitate a long-term growth to your organization. At Ready Artwork, we combine data-driven insights with innovative design to help your organization succeed in the digital age. Our team of experts specializes in web development, SEO, and digital outreach. We're here to help you amplify your traditional marketing with innovative and unexpected ways. To learn more, visit readyartwork.com. Let Ready Artwork discover your organization's full potential. So joining me today is Mary-Joy Coburn, an award-winning communications executive and visionary leader with over 15 years of experience in government management, strategic planning, and crisis communications. As the Director of Communications for the Orange County Employees Retirement Systems, OCERS, she leads efforts in stakeholder engagement transparency and internal-external communications. Before OCERS, Mary-Joy was the Director and Communications for the Greater Los Angeles County Vector Control District, where she redefined the industry's communication landscape. She conducted over 100 media interviews and led award-winning campaigns recognized at both regional and national levels. Her passion for effective storytelling goes beyond her roles. She was founded key professional groups such as Los Angeles Public Information Officials and Orange County Public Information Officials, fostering collaboration amongst communicators. With a strong background in political science, broadcast journalism, and a current pursuit of master's degree in public administration, Mary-Joy is the epitome of dynamic, lifelong learner. Today, we'll uncover her journey, her leadership philosophies, and the lessons she'll learn along the way. Mary-Joy, welcome to the Raw Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me, Emily. And that was a beautiful introduction. Thank you so much.
Your bio is absolutely amazing. And I, before the recording started, I said, low key, I've been, spying on your profile, and I was just like, wow. I had the pleasure of working with you in your very, very early days, right?
Yeah.
And that was when you were doing a little bit of marketing, right, at the time. And it's just incredible seeing how far you've come, because, well, that's 10 plus years ago, right? Not to date myself, but that was amazing. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But let's dive in. Maybe, I have some questions. So yeah, in terms of your early careers and background, let's start from the beginning. What inspired you to pursue a career in communications and public relations?
Yes. So the recession kind of started that whole thing. In full transparency, I did not go to school for communications. I went to school for political science and broadcast journalism, with the intention of becoming a political correspondent. Unfortunately, when I graduated in 2008, 2009, that was during the recession, and the jobs in the media market were not available at the time. But due to my media training, I was able to pivot. And so then I became the spokesperson for agencies. And I know how to pitch, I know how to write. And I know what journalists are looking for to cover their stories because that's what I studied to become. And so that just became a really easy transition. And then a lot of the stuff was just a lot of mentors, a lot of people who were able to, give to me so I can ask all these questions, and I learned on the job. So I'm really grateful for that. And because of that, I want to be able to give back. And so I've been really fortunate to have a lot of young people who are also eager and hungry to learn from me. So it's been so great to be able to give back in that sense and mentor them.
Yeah, that's great. So it's kind of like the economy kind of got you in, and then it shaped you from there, and you just took on that opportunity and just
For sure. That's a lot of hustling for sure.
yeah, you've made a way for yourself. That's great. So you have an interesting combination from political science and broadcast, journalism in your background. How how has that shaped your approach in like your leadership skills or your way of storytelling?
Yeah, I do this a lot when I have my communications department meeting. I like to talk about current events. So first
Hmm.
thing I do in the morning as I read the news, what is going on? And what I'm teaching my staff to do is any article, any story, if you are the PR person, how you would approach that? Is that how you would advise the people that are involved in these events or circumstances?
Hmm.
Or how are you going to mitigate the situation or make it um, in a way that is honest,
Hmm.
truthful, but also um, it shows, the true story of what's going on. So that's part of my leadership, just having challenging them to think in that sense, anything and everything, and it's not just government, because I'm in government. It's not just what's going on with, the federal layoffs right now or what's going on with all the flights,
Hmm.
but we're also talking about entertainment.
Yeah.
Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively situation, a lot of that sometimes whatever industry we're in, we're kind of honed into that specific thing, but everything somehow integrates somehow. And so
Hmm.
it's really important for us to open our eyes and see everything because there's some kind of integration at one point, and you need to be able to see everything from that perspective. Um, so that kind of leadership is just like talking about what is going on in the world. How does that apply to our job right now? Or even forecasting. This is what's going on in the federal agencies right now. How is that going to impact local agencies, or is it going to? And what story are we telling to get ready for those things should it happen? And then I also put myself in the place, like I think about my friends who are the public information officer, the communications people in the federal agencies, and I reach out to them. How are you doing? What help do you need right now?
Yeah.
And for those that have been let go, just making sure the message is shared if they are looking for a new opportunity. So it's been a really great way to talk about political science, broadcast journalism, reading the news, and then talking about that in my current job or current role as a director of communications.
Right. So there's pretty much all angles that you have to consider as you approach both, basically, right? Not just from your end, but what's happening out there, and then the receiving end or people that are getting affected by it as well.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Because I always anticipate media, and media coverage will always call and say, like, this is what's going on here. Would it happen here? So you always need to be ready and have a response. So that's the kind of framework that I look at stuff whenever
Mhm.
I'm dealing with any daily events or news.
So I guess with you've held multiple positions at different
Mhm.
organizations, what has been the biggest like leadership lessons you've learned that you
Oh
can
my
share with us?
goodness. The biggest leadership, I think, is humility. It's knowing when you don't know.
Hmm.
Um, because it's all about transparency, and especially in government communication or any communications, really, because people can tell if you are not being fully honest or not being fully transparent.
Right.
So admitting if you don't know, but always making sure that you get the response and getting back to the people. And I've seen this demonstrated in multiple ways from my mentors or the CEOs or general managers that I've worked under. And one thing that they always tell me is you don't have to be the smartest person in the room. You just need to make sure that you hire the smart people who will become your cabinet members. They're the ones that will be advising you on those specific things, right? You
That
know
is
that
true.
doesn't have
Yeah,
to be
that is
government. That's
true.
in anything and everything. So being humble enough to know that
Hmm.
you don't know everything, but knowing how to utilize your resources so that you make the best decision for yourself, your company, your agency, and the people that you serve.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that. Staying grounded and open to understanding and transparency at the end of the day, too, right? Yeah, because it's all about fostering relationships. So yeah, that makes a lot of sense. As a director of communications, you oversee key stakeholders, engagement, internal communications, and crisis management. How do
Mhm.
you balance these different aspects effectively?
Having a really good Outlook calendar. um, there's a lot of, like I mentioned, like you don't know, like I don't know everything. But also knowing what I need, like what is it that I need to ensure that I am the best possible, or I'm in the best possible position to serve the community that I provide service to, and making sure that I get the development or the training that I need
Mhm.
if I don't have that. So, knowing like, okay, I don't know how to do this. I need to get a consultant for this specific thing, but how do I ensure that I know in the future? And then just looking at my calendar, because if I know that that's a training that I need and that becomes a priority, I need to make sure that I clear my calendar and um, set a time for that. And if it's
Mhm.
something that I need to continually do so that it becomes inherent, then, I make sure that I do that or perform that task at least 10 minutes a day until it becomes, you know, intuitive. So it's just making sure that you have time and prioritizing the work or what it is that you need at that moment to
Mhm.
ensure that you get it done.
Yeah, Outlook calendar. I mean, you are balancing a lot, right? You have introduced innovative initiatives like the National Retirement Security Week campaign,
Mhm.
CEO-led videos, and fireside chats. How do you balance all of this? And then what strategies do you use to keep, these communications fresh and engaging for everyone?
Yeah. So I'm privileged enough to be able to sit with the CEO once a week. And when we sit down and talk, not only do we do the same thing, we talk about what are the biggest news affecting our industry at this time,
Hmm.
because those could be the priorities. But I always have a list of about 8 items. I mean, my ongoing list is probably 100, but I would have a list of the things that we need to prioritize, in my opinion, at this time.
Hmm.
And then he would look at the list and he would also advise me on, nope, no, this should be the number one, right? But having that collaboration with the CEO or whoever you're working with to make sure that you are both on the same page as to what the priorities are, and then also being on the same page as to what things can fall off the priority list at this time, because this is what needs to be done right now.
Hmm.
So having that flexibility is really important, but having that knowing your priorities is 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 the best thing, I think, because you cannot do it all. And we like, as women, sometimes we're like, oh yeah, we can do everything. We're multitaskers.
Exactly. Yeah.
But studies show that the more you have on your list, you're actually not going to get anything done. So it's really important to identify what is the maximum capacity that you can do. And then once you have identified, some people it's only 2, some people it's 4, some people it's 8, depending on what it is and what the task that needs to get done. Some things need to fall off that list. And that's how I make sure that I balance things. I'm going to grad school right now, so my social life has taken some back burner stuff. And that's totally fine because right now this is also my priority. Whereas in the past, I was organizing a lot of things in my sorority as an alumni. I do a lot of volunteer work. So that is definitely an example of what's going on in this semester. Some stuff have to take the back burner.
Yeah. So like at different stage of your life, certain things will take priority and certain things will fill your cup a little bit more, right? And you're truly investing in your future self as well. So, I mean, I admire that you're able to balance all of that.
We can make it happen, but yeah.
So before this interview, I had to Google what exactly is crisis communication, just so I can truly understand what that is before coming to this chat with you. So maybe for you to, describe to our listeners, what exactly is crisis communication?
So in any industry, there is, an industry would identify what the crisis is. I'm not going to talk about the crisis for my current industry, but in my former job, we talked about vector control. So crisis is when there's an opposition or there's an emergency, and whatever you have on your calendar has to be moved aside because there's this thing that is so important and that it takes precedence. So what I've learned with a lot of the trainings that I've done for crisis communications, and that's with FEMA and, federal agency emergency stuff, it's you have to already have a crisis communications plan in order, because when an emergency occurs, sometimes we can't think, right?
Yeah.
Because there's so many things happening in our minds about what needs to happen. So it's really, for crisis communications, you have to already have a plan in place so that if something happens, you could just go down the list of what needs to get done. You don't have to think so much because the priority list has already been done for you. So in vector control, crisis communications would be a public health crisis. All of a sudden, this invasive species of mosquitoes comes into the county. These people are getting sick. These people are dying. It could be dengue, Zika, West Nile virus. And it happens so quickly that a huge mass of the population is affected. So you need to mobilize all these public health nurses and different people to come together and go door to door in a specific hot risk neighborhood.
I see.
So these things happen so quickly. And for me, as far as planning, I already have door hangers ready. I had talking points already written out. I had press releases ready, and a crisis communications room set up with like TVs and everything. So a huge part of crisis communications take place way before an emergency occurs, so that when an emergency happens, all I need to do is change the date, the time, and the location. And then everybody knows their roles. It's just simply pressing a button and everyone comes together to take care of this. So that would be an example of a crisis communications and a crisis incident and what a communications would have to do at that time.
Thanks for painting all that picture for me. What is the one most challenging crisis situation that you've handled in the past?
So similar, vector control once again.
So that was a real one that you were sharing.
Yes.
Okay.
These are very real situations. I was on my way to the airport going to Washington, D.C., and we get an alert that the first human case for Zika was going to happen. So you think that this is like could be like a global thing, right? We just had like a global pandemic. This was pre-COVID, and that would be the situation that could happen if this went, crazy in that sense. So I was on my way to Washington, D.C., on an Uber when I get a message from the public health department saying first Zika case could be happening. Luckily, I already had these things in place. I had already had the door hangers printed, and they were just in the corner in boxes somewhere in case this happens. So we knew what we needed to do, and I was getting on the plane. So I had this conversation with my general manager. I'll be on the plane for 5 hours. These are the things that need to happen, and when I get there, then we can Zoom and we can continue. Um, so I got on the plane, and in my mind, like all these things are going to happen, right? Luckily, there was a misdiagnosis or something, and we didn't have to go through that. Woo. But at that time, my heart was just palpitating the entire time, because that's usually what happens. And all my public information officials, friends, and I talk about this a lot. Usually we're so ready for things, but it's usually when we're out that an emergency happens, or a general manager or someone that has a key task for an emergency leaves. And that's why those crisis communication plans are so important, because someone can easily do it because it's all written out.
Right. So there's a lot of prep work to prepare anyone to execute effectively, basically.
Exactly. But I mean, we had planes ready. We had all these press releases ready, Luckily, it didn't get to that point, but in case it did, everything was all prepared.
That's very cool. But I mean, not cool, but that's great that you guys were so prepared for it. Mm-hmm. So when it comes to the public sector, there are unique challenges in messaging and transparency. Yeah. How do you ensure trust and clarity in government communication?
So once again, similar to crisis, that the trust and transparency has to occur before an emergency happens. So when I first joined the very first public agency, there was a different mindset as far as we are government and these are the public, and there is a clear distinction as to who does what and how you talk to each other. And the previous agency I worked at, they had all the executive suite and the board members on the website, and it was all male, Caucasian, and older. And so if I, as a member of the public, saw that, there was a lot of a dialogue about the man being the government, right? And having that. And that's what people see as far as who are these decision makers. And people, so now the public thought is the government, they don't care for us. They, we're just like a group of people that they can experiment with, etc. So I come in and I'm like, transparency has to happen. So instead of just showcasing the executive level people and the board members, I want to make sure that we showcase or feature the grassroots level, our frontline staff, so that when people start seeing it, it's not that major difference, but these are your brother, your neighbor, your friends, right? So it took a lot to start featuring. And then you also show the diversity, because once again, this is a true representation of the members of the public that you are serving. Right. And I saw that huge chasm just kind of diminish, and people started to see like, oh my gosh, that's my friend, or I went to high school with so-and-so. And so that government agency that I was working at became a lot more relatable. And because of that, there was trust, that people are now like, they are real people. There are people that are driving around in the trucks. These are the people that come into my backyard to do an inspection.
Mhm.
That's my neighbor, and so it just created a more community feel, which
Yeah.
I think what it should be, especially in local government. So I can speak with federal, but for federal, but for local government, that's what you need. So that's transparency and trust.
Right. So it's someone that you can relate to or resonate with, right? It's just they look like me, and it could be someone that I went to school with or someone that's
Mhm.
next door. Yeah.
Exactly. So
I
the
like
whole
that a lot.
representation.
Yeah, I like that a lot. You've launched professional groups like LA, Los Angeles Public Information Officials and the Orange County Public Information Officials, where
Mhm.
you foster collaboration amongst communicators. What motivated you to start these groups, and what impact have they had so far?
Oh my goodness. Okay. So this is a major one. And what year was this? This probably in 2013. Um, I was first starting as a public information officer for this agency, and um, the agencies at the time did not talk to each other. So this was for OC Vector. There was an odor coming from Huntington Beach, and they're like, "What is that?" So when something like smells unusual and it's in the air, members of the public call the government agency, whether it's a city. At this time, they called the fire department in their city. And I sent out a press release a couple days prior to that, and it was picked up by the local newspaper. So the fire captain from that city got the call, and
Mhm.
he's like, "Oh, that's vector control spraying for mosquitoes," and that just started a whole thing. And I was coming into work the next day, did not read the news at that time. I had no idea that ABC7, all the local networks had picked up that story and now saying that it was my agency
Oh
that was the
no.
cause of the odor. And then all these members of the public started calling the board members, and some have been um, threatening some of them
Mhm.
because of allowing this thing.
Mhm.
So, I had to call so many people trying to figure out what is going on. I had to call a lot of the different news networks saying, where are you getting all this information? And why are you quoting an agency that is not mine? And we're the ones being accused. And why did you not call me? So the newspaper at that time that morning was just like government agencies pointing fingers at the cause of odor, and it was just a gnarly experience. I had to do a media advisory. I was calling people to issue a retraction. I was calling the cities to tell them like you need to change that information on your social media and on your website. um and that was an experience that I had. I learned a lot, but
Mhm.
also that is something that I didn't want any other agencies to experience because it was terrible. So I decided that we as local public information officials need to come together, meet each other, see
Mhm.
each other as people, and then learn about our agencies, what we do, so that we don't misspeak
Mhm.
or speak on other people's or other agencies' behalf and provide misinformation. So I launched the first meeting, and it was the communications people from not just the local agencies, but representatives from the state and federal also joined. And I was able to educate them on what my agency does. And if they get certain calls from the media, direct them to me. And then we should all get to know each other and
Mhm.
in our agencies, so that if the media calls me and asks about the air, I know to call the South Coast air quality,
Right.
right? Or different things. So it was a great way to come together and learn that there's so many. agencies that we weren't aware of. There's a cemetery district. There's different kinds of very specialized districts. And it was so great. People really enjoyed that. And we also got to meet at different locations, and every different agency was able to, share. Similar to what you guys do already at work, when you have the chamber meetings or something, similar to that, but this is the government, local government. And then when I got the job in LA, I had such a great experience. And because I was new, it was an opportunity to do the same and get to know the other agencies and for them to get to know me. So it just became a thing. And now different subgroups all throughout the state are doing something similar because they see the value in that kind of collaboration.
That is cool. So basically you experienced like a major pain point firsthand, and you're like, okay, they need to talk or they need
We
to at least
need to
connect.
talk. Yeah.
Yeah, or at least they need to connect or know of each other or know, what is going on. And you basically created a channel or a place for them to do that. That is really neat. So you
Yeah, and that
replicated
also,
that. Sorry.
no, it also, enforces or encourages mutual aid.
Right.
So that if say I'm the PIO, but then I'm on vacation or I'm on a flight, someone else can step in because they know the role and then they have the speaking points and everything ready. But yeah, go ahead.
No,
What
I
were
was
you saying?
going to say you basically have that in the LA space as well as the OC space. So you kind of replicated that. I think that's clever.
Yeah, and now we see that in Central Valley, see it in the Central Coast and in NorCal, all over California. So it's been really great.
Neat. So I guess looking ahead, in the industry, um, at the future, like the future of communications, what emerging trends do you think will shape the industry in the next couple of years? Like, let's just say 5 years.
Yeah, this has been the ongoing um, dialogue in every communications field, I think, not just
Yeah.
government, right? The prominence of AI, artificial intelligence, and the ones that most people are fully aware of are ChatGPT. And then, of course, different platforms that we use have integrated that. Like we see it in Canva, we see it in Adobe Photoshop. So that's really interesting. But there has been some fear within our peers, right? Because it's like, if I'm the one that writes a lot of the social media stuff, you could just say, ChatGPT, you know, create like a little blurb for social media and then create an image or whatever, and something could be done. So that has been part of the conversation. But my take on this is, it's not really something to fear. It's definitely something that could enhance or help facilitate. But it's really important for us to know how to use AI, because I have seen some posts that are clearly AI and it has not been fixed or personalized in a way. And I mean,
Yeah.
I think we all know when we see
Yes.
that, right?
Yes.
So, but I've also seen it work really, really well. I've seen it create press releases. I've seen it create songs and music videos and different things. So I think that that's what we are going to be seeing in the next 5 years. It's going to be even more prominent. There's a lot more platforms that are coming up, and they're being improved. I know for my agency, we have an artificial intelligence task force that we kind of mobilize, and it's just discussing a lot of the things. But there's a lot more security with government that we need to be aware of. We have to establish a lot of policies as far as the use and the privacy information, because we deal a lot of um, private data. So there's a lot of work, but it's so exciting, and I look forward to seeing how it can enhance and elevate the work that we continue to produce.
Yeah, I think it's definitely helping us with to become more efficient at what we do. But then for the most part, from what I'm hearing is in the government sector, it's it's a positive outlook in artificial intelligence then.
It's a mix right now.
Okay.
Based on the conversations that I've had, and we had this conversation at the national level with a lot of my peers, and it's back and forth. It's also
Mm,
depending on the more traditional marketers,
yeah.
people who have been, they're used to a certain way and they are being challenged. So there is some kind of fear and some kind of hesitance
Mm,
from a few. But then I think from the younger crowd, or for those who are very technology savvy, this is something that they are very excited about,
mhm.
and efficiency, seeing how, especially for a lot of government agencies that I've seen, the communications department, it's still very small, or a communications person functions as some other role.
Mhm.
So this could really help them as far as, you know, if they know the different formulas or different keywords that they can use, it can
Yeah.
really help them out with
Yeah.
efficiency.
Yeah, it'll be or like future organizations would just be hiring AI prompters just to write prompts for and spit out any of
Yeah,
the equations or solutions for us in AI. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see. We'll see what that looks like in a couple of years.
it's
Um,
it's it's exciting.
for for looking at you personally, at what drives you and your hustle, um, what's your personal mantra or philosophy when it comes to your career growth and success?
Authenticity. Um, you know, a lot of people can do what I do, what we do. So it's important to see what it is, what's unique about us, what's unique about me, and what do I bring to the table based on my experience and my culture and just the different things that make me who I am. And I encourage that for my staff as well, to be just really authentic,
Mhm.
because how we approach things, the way we problem solve, a lot of that is based on where we came from, how we grew up, different mindsets
Mhm.
and thoughtfulness. Um, and I've been requested, or I've been asked to speak at different college um, courses to speak on personal branding and authenticity
Mhm.
as a communications person. And so that's definitely something that I take pride in. And also, it's something that makes me unique because, I mean, my social media is slightly different. It's probably not in a traditional sense, but I like it. And I think that's really important for a lot of us to be, to come as our whole selves,
Yeah.
and show up as that.
Yeah. I like that. Yeah, because it's you all around, career, personal, family, hobbies, whatnot. Speaking of hobbies, I know, you're pursuing a master's degree in public
Mhm.
administration. And aside from all the organizations that you're involved in and all of that, what do
Mhm.
you do for fun?
It changes a lot, but um, as a communicator, marketing person, I think we're very creative. I've I've done a lot of sewing and creating stuff around the home, but my latest hobby has been making sourdough bread. And now I feel
Oh,
like the entire country is making sourdough bread. So that's been my thing. And when I'm studying, have you ever made sourdough bread, Emily?
I'm horrible in the kitchen. So I've I've done some cheesecake in my earlier days, but yeah,
Okay.
yeah. Kitchen and I don't mix, but
That's really funny. I've been making sourdough, and despite the whole like career and being this independent woman, I really love to serve and to provide these things. And I always picture myself, going to my neighbors or going to like a getting invited to dinner and bringing something homemade. And so now my biggest thing is bringing sourdough bread and giving that to my neighbors, because I've made a lot and it's a lot of carbs. And my husband's just like, I am done. Like, that's a lot of sourdough bread.
it is
So
something
I've
that's
been gifting
trending.
them.
Yeah. Do you have to have like a starter yeast that you maintain for your
Yes. So I
That's
do
a
have a
lot of work.
starter. Yeah, I have a starter. Then I have like all the different bowls and yeah, I follow different directions. And now like I've gone into creating my own cinnamon roll
Wow.
um out from that sourdough starter. So it's been really, really cool. And it's something that I can do while I'm studying because how it is you kind of like knead it or you fold it and you leave it for 30 minutes.
Hmm.
And then I can just like do my readings or whatever for those 30 minutes. And then when the bell rings, then I go and fold it again. So it's a process
Hmm.
and it's like 15 to 22 hours to make one bread because of all the different fermentation
Hmm.
process. But that's my current hobby. It changes. So if you ask me in 6 months, it could be something else.
Okay. But you are a true hustler in my books. Like you're trying to integrate work, study, and life balance all in like in one. Yeah, but you're making me hungry as well. So, in closing, I have a few more questions, but if you can give one piece of advice to your younger self, what would it be?
Try everything. Um, because you just never know. Like I did not know, I did not plan to be a communications person, right?
Mm.
But I had a whole other thought or I envisioned myself doing something completely different at this time, but I'm very happy with where I ended up. So I'm glad that I was able to pivot and I was able to give it my all once I did. Because that just I was able to hone, I was able to learn, I was open to taking additional training courses and classes and taking on different things that my boss assigned me until eventually I was able, I became a specialist in a particular thing and then was just able to grow from there. And the other thing is to find mentors.
Hmm.
Um, Mentors and coaches have been really important for me um, because different people bring so much based on their own life experience. And I'm glad, their lessons learned. I don't have to learn on my own. I learned through them, and that was really cool. And then I always ask for books. Like, what book recommendations can
Yeah.
you give me if there's if I see someone doing really well in a particular area, I ask them, like, how did you get
Hmm.
into that? What other resources can you provide me so that I can also look into that? If they're not able to be a mentor or coach me. So I absorb so much. So going back to the whole being just a learner throughout my entire life, that's been so important. But having that open mind and trying everything, because you don't know what you're good at until you actually do it.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Okay, one last question. What is your favorite tool or software that you find essential to your day-to-day work currently?
Okay, so I already talked about Outlook. My newest one is Canva. Um, to be honest, when Canva was first introduced to me, I was so hesitant because I'm a traditionalist and I learned Adobe Creative Suite.
I'm
And
with
I
you on
know
that.
I'm like, you're cheating using Canva. You could do Premiere, you could do Illustrator and Photoshop, but now like you could do so much. I mean, it's pretty limited, right? As people who can design using Illustrator and those vector files,
Right.
we know there's so much more we can do, and we're pretty
Right.
limited in Canva. But if you're also limited on time and you need something quick, Canva is like the best thing right now.
Yeah, I think a lot of people do pick in marketing or design. I mean, if it gets the job done, I mean, why not
Mhm.
in a shorter amount of time and quicker too? And in terms of, you can do it on the run on a cell phone or on a
Mhm.
tablet rather than, having to go to an actual desktop to perform it on Adobe Suite. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's been great.
Okay, well, Mary Joy, this has been an amazing conversation. I truly admire your hustle, your leadership, and your impact that you've made in the industry. There There's so much I've learned from you today. And honestly, so much to learn from you as I continue my own podcast journey as well. You're an amazing speaker. So thank you so much. And for sharing your wisdom and experience with me, with my listeners. And for those listeners that might want to connect with you, where can they find you?
I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. So Mary-Joy Coburn. Look for me, let's connect and see how I can help you.
Great. Well, it's been a pleasure of having you on the Raw Spotlight. She's got hustle. Thank you for the inspiring stories, and thank you again to you and our listeners for tuning in. Until next time, thank you.
Thanks for listening to the Raw Spotlight podcast. We'll see you again next time, and be sure to click subscribe to get future episodes.